Welcome to Inventive Financial Youth Family Support Center. My name is Rose, and today I have with me Mr. Mark Harendorf from the Accounting for Divorce. Thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure.
Mark, would you mind starting by telling us a little bit about yourself and why you're here today?
I've been practicing accounting and tax for 30 some odd years, and I really started specializing in the divorce arena 12 years ago. I was helping some clients and through my own divorce, and so I'm realizing that there's a very large information gap between what the client's knowledge about what their divorce is going to be and the family law lawyer. And the family law lawyers, absolutely, the ones I work with are fantastic. They know the law well, but there's so much accounting and tax related work embedded in the divorce that neither party has the knowledge of. That's where I get involved. That's where I help either the client going through things or the lawyer or both, and helping them go through their separation and their agreements from what issues are there and what's going to happen. It's a great avenue to help people.
Going through separation, divorce can be a very emotional time for families, and having someone with your expertise can really help families in moving forward.
Yes.
Can you explain to us, why should one hire a CDFA when going through a separation or a divorce?
My own philosophy is whenever I make a decision in life on whatever it is, I want to have as much information as I can so that I can make that decision going forward. In a divorce, there's many different aspects. When children are involved, there's real estate involved, financial issues involved. And the more one is educated, the more they can make that better decision. And so a CDFA is very specific in dealing with financial and accounting related aspects that a divorce coach or a therapist or even a lawyer may not have that knowledge base.
That's very true. There's a lot of issues when it comes to finances with valuations that as an accounting firm you are aware of that maybe a lawyer may not know.
Correct.
Or another expertise might not know. And that is where the collaboration is always there between lawyers, real estate agents, to mediators, and arbitrators, because we all collaborate together.
Yes.
What role does CDFA play during the separation process?
I often tell people when they ask me, what will you actually be able to do for me? And I go, well, it depends on where you're engaging me and approaching me in your divorce process. I'll give you two extremes. One is I had a situation where a woman called me and said, I'm recently separated. I've heard about you and I think I need your services. And I asked, okay, when were you separated? She goes, last night. I went, oh boy. Okay, so you have a whole stream of things that you need done and work and so forth. So that's obviously one end of the spectrum, where I'll also work with lawyers who say, we're just about ready to settle. We have our draft agreement written. We're about to sign on the dotted line. Please look at this and make sure we don't have any accounting and tax related issues. I can also get involved at the tail end of a process. And of course, anywhere in the middle. The biggest thing that has to be done is you have to do financial disclosure. And that's really the key piece that I look at. And it's not only helping people put all the numbers down and seeing what the numbers say and coming out with the equalization payment based on that NSP and the family property number, but it's not just when party A owes party B $1 million per se, it's how they should pay that $1 million or receive the $1 million, depending on who I'm acting for. Some people have assets but don't have cash. So I owe you $1 million, but I don't have the cash. I have real estate. I have a pension when I retire. I have an RRSP. I have a home in another country, whatever. So it's not only just calculating what needs to be done, it's advising how the payment and or receipt ought to be made and dealing with all the accounting and tax related issues in there. And then, of course, looking at the agreement at the end of the day to make sure that once both parties do leave the lawyer's office and go live their lives and go do tax returns, that the separation agreement written under family law is agreed to tax law, because there are many differences where they don't agree. And I'll get involved at quite a bit at that level to make sure that when the client is leaving the lawyer's office, they're leaving happy and they're not going to go back to have to deal with things that perhaps could have been dealt with earlier on.
So reality is, as an accounting firm, you see yourself as part of that responsibility of helping the individual during and after the separation.
Yeah. I'm dealing with a few files right now where there's a lot of post-separation accounting. So, you have a separation date that hopefully you both agree upon. And when you do, that's the dividing line. That's the line in the sand. But yet you haven't quite divided your assets. You might still be operating out of the same joint bank account post-separation. One needs to look at eventually, well, I paid for this, you paid for that. I ought to have paid for this, you ought to have paid for that, and equalize who may owe who something after the separation date. Credit cards, lines of credit, the house expenses. So until they actually settle and are living financially independently, there's a lot of work post-separation to be done as well.
That's really important to realize. Our job is not just to help parents through the separation process. is also to help families after the separation process. Those taxes are very important part of the separation that needs to be looked into. Does CDFA provide valuation services?
No, it's a distinct discipline that it does that. A chartered business valuator, a CBV, has a different designation than a CDFA or a lawyer or a regular accountant. So I do not provide valuation services when you either have shares of a private business, a pension plan. There are specific individuals, there are specific people with credentials that will provide those valuations.
Do all CDFAs provide the same services to their clients?
It's a partial yes and no. And what I mean by that is the typical services that I've been describing, I think every CDFA will perform, helping with financial disclosure, looking at the assets and making sure things are all there and accounted for and so forth. But like lawyers, everyone has a different discipline or everyone has a different focus or a small specialty within their own profession. And having all the tax related experience that I've had for almost 35 years, I could look at that agreement from a tax perspective that another CDFA who's trained in the financial and divorce related issues may not have the tax related experience. So there are slight differences in where your practice and focus takes you. And that's one of the things that I do a little bit different than others.
It doesn't matter if my spouse and I never married and they were living only as common law or they were cohabitating.
There are quite a few differences. I'm not a lawyer. I don't practice law. I mean, I know a fair bit about it. For example, in the common law, you actually never got married. You may be living together like a married couple, but there's no formal divorce process because divorce relates to the Family Divorce Act and whatever province you're in, and you actually never married. There's no requirement to separate your assets and do an equalization of assets when you're common law versus married. There's quite a few differences. Spousal support is still at the table. Child support is still at the table, but there are a lot of differences. Rights to the matrimonial home, things like that.
Are there any specific issues that younger divorcing couples may experience opposed to older divorcing couples?
Of course, and the biggest one is children. The younger families that are divorcing, keep trying to say the word families that are divorcing and not couple because the divorce affects everybody in the family. I've also seen cases where it's affecting the grandparents. Visitation rights. You have a younger couple, little children, and now the couple is divorced. Grandparents want to have visitation rights of the children. But I don't get involved in those aspects of the divorce, but in younger families, the children bring about way more issues than a more senior couple that's divorcing. And then also my focus being on the tax side of things, when it comes to tax returns, there are numerous things in a tax return affecting children, how to clean the children, childcare costs, all of these different kind of credits and benefits and things. And I try to instill in the lawyers that I deal with, try to write those things into your agreements before they're signed and the client leaves your office, because they're going to go to their accountants, presumably two different accountants when they leave each other. And if the agreements are silent on those issues, you can't file a tax return or you're going to file them incorrect. And then they're going to be unhappy. Well, why didn't my lawyer deal with that? And what do I do now? So I try to work with the lawyers, and I've done this many times where I'll look at that separation agreement and give knowledge and give verbiage to the lawyer to insert tax-related paragraphs right into the agreements so that the returns are as clean as they can be, let's say, coming out of it.
That's very important.
You can't handle everything. You can't deal with everything. But if you're in that process, the more you can deal with, the better. Yeah.
Are the financial issues the same for every divorcing couple?
Definitely not. I've yet to see two people that say we have the exact same money in our bank account, couple A versus couple B. So everybody has different issues. Everybody has different assets. Some own their home. Some are in rentals. Some they're employed in their jobs. Some are self-employed. Some have 2 children. Some have no children. Some have 5 children. So no financial statements are the same. No marriage is the same, but the process is the same. Unless you're common law, everybody's going to have to go through their financial disclosure. Everyone's going to have to go through an equalization process and then deal with child support and spousal support issues if they're applicable. So the process may be the same, but the numbers they're never the same.
They're never the same. And CDFA participate in mediation and arbitration processes.
Absolutely. And I love doing that because you see helping people from both sides, which is great. And if a couple can stay amicable during the process, obviously the better for them, better for everybody, right? Children and everybody. Having a CDFA at the mediation table, although it's a costly meeting, relative with all the professionals involved, it saves so much money down the road because most people should only go to mediation on the issues they can't resolve. If you're amicable, you can resolve a lot of your issues before that. Then having a CDFA at the table allows you to finish, hopefully, those issues right then and there. And if a question comes about how to deal with this particular number or tax issue, it can be dealt with right then and there, and you make the best use of your resources at that mediation.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes. So we talked about mediation and arbitration and how CDFA can support the whole process. How about looking into collaborative law?
One of the things I like to try to explain to couples, whether I'm just dealing with one side or both, but certainly more on the collaborative side, is there's a very big difference between coming out equal and coming out equitable. And people don't often get that. For example, if a couple has $1 million in cash in a bank account and they have a home worth $1 million, that's all they have. From the pure numbers, one could say it was equal. They each came away, assuming one has the house and one has the money, they each came away equal. But I don't think that's equitable, because the one who has the house can't buy food, can't put gas in the car, can't pay for children's expenses. It's equal, but it's not equitable. And a lot of what I do is I'll look at in the collaborative arena is, what does each person need to walk away with? What's important for them? One may have a lot of excess cash, one may not. They both need money. They both need certain things. What are their ages? Is someone going to be retiring shortly? Will there be a pension coming into play? What's their health like? Does anyone have any extra medical related costs? When I'm dealing with both sides, I go a lot deeper into what's involved with both people to come up with a plan that works for everybody.
That's wonderful, Mark. It sounds like when you're doing your work, you're really looking at it in each case, and there's a lot of personal touch when you're working with families going through separation.
No two files are the same. No two families are the same. Absolutely.
If there was a takeaway that you want to leave with us today, what would that be?
Divorce is expensive, and I'm not going to sugarcoat that between coaches and therapists and lawyers and professionals like myself. But don't be short-sighted either. Sometimes you spend a little bit of money on something and get a massive financial benefit from it and other benefits. If you're going down that road, hire the right people. And hire the right people at the beginning, whether that's psychiatrists, psychologists, coaches, real estate, whatever your professionals are. Get your divorce team established early and get quality people on your team, because the benefits will be fantastic.
That is wonderful notes. Thank you so much for joining us today. How can we reach you for more support?
So you can get me off my website, Accounting for Divorce. My phone number's out there all over the place. Any way you want to get a hold of me, texting, calling, I'm around.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.